For anyone who is a guest of the meeting, if you don't mind just introducing yourself in the chat, would just appreciate that. And hopefully I will not screw up too much protocol, but I believe that everyone here will correct me. We have 4 agenda items for today. One is kind of approval of last month's minutes. The second is a review of the final district needs statement and capital expenses priorities. And I believe Susan will kind of give us an overview there. Next, we'll have a report from the Arts and Cultural Subcommittee. We're going to have a conversation around the special district and just kind of revisiting where we are, just given the fact that we had talked about outreach and just kind of want to take a pulse of the group. And then we will have a vote to adjourn. And so first we'll start with approval for previous month's minutes.
Okay.
A motion?
You don't need a motion.
Great. Thank you, Richard.
Don't move anyhow.
Anisha Stephen is not, so I'm going to do a roll call now, okay?
Great.
Anisha Stephen is not here. Megan Joy, yes. Alistair Economakis.
Yes. Yes.
Andrea Gordillo. Andrea. Okay. Herman Hewitt.
Yes.
Joe Kearns.
Yes.
David Louie.
Yes.
Alexandra Militano.
Yes.
Richard Ropiak.
Yes.
Rodney Washington. Rodney, you there? No. Andrew Comey.
Yep.
Andrea just joined, by the way.
Oh, great. And Andrea, do you approve last month's minutes?
Yes. Sorry, I'm late.
No worries.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, successful execution of agenda item 1. We've got some ingoing momentum. This is great. So I think the next thing we're going to do is just post, or Megan, if you don't mind sharing, or I can share, just the district needs statement. My understanding is we were basically finished on this as of last meeting, but just want to pop it up one last time. I think there was one small edit that I think is noted in the document, but otherwise I think we should be all set there.
Okay, just give me 1 sec.
That was my attempt at lightly filibustering while you put the document up on the screen.
Keep going.
And then Susan, I know you are going to give an overview on capital and expenses priorities, and I believe we have a document on that as well. So we'll project that
Correct.
after that.
Correct.
Great.
Wait a second. Do you guys see anything on the screen right now?
A number of things.
A lot of open things that don't, right? So
I see Blue Haven PFD.
oh, really? Hold on.
There you go.
Okay.
So it has track changes for the new information for chain stores that actually came out last week.
So Susan, everything here is exactly what we discussed last month. There's been no real changes except for this one fact that supports, that was a supporting fact that was entered, right?
That was for the chain stores, and the new survey just came out last week. That's why we were able to put that information in. It's, you know, just updating the stats. It's nothing new as far as content. It's just updating the stats, and everything else was what had been finalized previously.
Okay, if you guys want me to scroll up at any stage, let me know.
Anyone have any comments or questions? Yeah, okay. Oh, Alex.
No,
No, sorry.
no, it's okay.
Oh, sorry, Alistair.
Alistair, similar, same thing. Sorry, I wasn't here at the last meeting. I'm sorry about that. I just read through this. I can comment on the third bullet item. I don't know if it's too late to make changes. I'll just give you information as I know it, and as I'm experiencing it, and as I hear from other people in the industry. On the third bullet item, we talk about commercial tenants not being able to pay rent to landlords, and that's obviously affecting small property owners. It's a little bit more extensive than that, in that we're facing several issues. We have obviously commercial tenants that can't pay rent. We also have a sector of residential tenants that are having difficulty paying rent as well, which is obviously affecting the income that a property receives. In addition to that, we are seeing huge, very dramatic, unprecedented amounts of vacancies in our buildings, and in addition to that, that obviously is resulting in a dramatic reduction in rents that we're getting, which also has a follow-on effect, because when you lower the rent in the building, obviously then other tenants that rented prior to COVID see that and come and negotiate, and obviously we have to negotiate with them too. So overall, the rents are decreasing as well. And this is really the first time I've experienced where we're really seeing, and we're not very aggressive with our financing at all. We're very conservative, but we're in negative cash flow, and things are in the negative. And we have reserves that will last for a certain amount of time, but if we continue on this trajectory, it's going to be very, very problematic. And if it's problematic for us, it's going to be very problematic, much more problematic for a lot of other people that are more aggressive. That's a lot of information. So I just wanted to mention that for the third bullet point, that it's kind of more complicated. That's all I have to say. I think Susan has something.
Okay, Susan.
Yeah, I just want to remind all that this is for comments for next year. And, I'm sure, and I know everything you're saying is absolutely true, but this is not sort of a comprehensive paper of what's the problems are now. It's looking at unmet, generally the unmet needs starting next July. So, I just wanted to put it in that context.
I guess.
Just a minute. Could we
Yeah,
use,
sorry, Herman.
could we use the word property owners instead of landlords?
You're saying in the third bullet?
Yeah. And it could say commercial and residential
Tenants, yeah.
Yeah,
tenants.
we can just, if we include residential, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
If we include residential tenants, that encompasses the issue.
Yeah, I think when we were first discussing this, the residential wasn't as much as it is now. I think, because we started discussing this a few months ago. But yeah, I've been hearing that from a lot of property owners, is that the residential is like tanked.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
I think 2 edits. One is just putting commercial and residential tenants, and then editing the word landlords to property owners.
Yeah, it would be consistent because we
Yep.
refer to them later as small property owners.
Yep, yep.
Even below that, the word is used, I would say to correct that wording all through the document.
If someone, whoever has the document can do it, find and replace, that would be a an easy fix.
Sorry, you want to replace all the landlords with property owners? Is that what is happening?
Yeah, I think that's the request.
That's what I'm requesting, yes.
And sorry, maybe just start the sentence, many commercial and residential tenants, because we obviously have a lot of residential tenants that are paying rent. And we do have some commercial, such as hardware stores, that have been paying rent without a problem throughout this. So it's not everyone, it's many or a number.
Okay, I'll do the find and replace thing after the meeting.
Cool.
If that's
Okay.
okay with everybody else.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay,
Anything else, or I think this one, I know we were basically finished last month, so that other than this small edit, I think we're basically finished and we can move on to Susan.
sure. So for the expense and capital priorities, we sent out, or Anisha sent out an explanation of what they are. I don't know if people had a chance to read them, but I'll go through, but skip part of it. And I'll say for this committee, we actually have opportunities for no capital and very few expense priorities, unlike some other committees. Maybe Meg, do you want to put up the expense priorities after? I'll go through this and then you can put them up. Okay. So every year, the community board votes on a ranked list of 25 expense priorities and 40 capital. Expense priorities are items like programming or staffing for an agency. And the goal of this is to bring services and money into our community for needs that we decide are most important. Therefore, if a program is well funded, we wouldn't vote on it as a priority because it wouldn't be bringing, advocating for more funding. It's already funded. We want to focus on programs that we want more funding for. And in my paper that was sent out, I talked about how we researched all of these priorities and met with the agencies, the community board office and the committee chairs, meet with each agency, the 12 boards together in September, and go over questions about the different programs and staffing needs. We also receive written answers from the agencies, which are on our website if people are interested. The committee has to first rank what they consider is most important on the priorities, and the reason that's important is because the list that will go to the board will be more than 25. So the bottom ones of different committees may drop off the list to get to our 25. So you have to first rank them, then the committee will vote on them, and then all the committees' priorities will be collated into one list for the community board, and then the full board will vote on that. So does that make sense? If there are any questions, is it too much or too little?
Any questions?
So
the question would be on the budget priorities that we have.
yeah, there's a list that Megan's going to put up.
Okay.
That came, and that list came from, we ask all the committees in June to give us questions that they're interested in getting information on. We made an agenda for the agencies asking for information. Workforce development on the list also was prioritized in our public hearing that we had. So this list of items plus explanations came from both the public hearings and the meetings with the agencies. And if I could just to talk about why it's important to advocate. The first one is for commercial lease assistance program. The small business services had actually ended that program, and there was such an outcry because of the need for free legal assistance for leases and matters related to leases that they brought the program back, and we want to make sure that that program is well funded.
Right, and if I could just speak to the the workforce development one is all of those workforce development programs get funded, or a lot of them get funded through SBS, and I think we're going to need that more than ever now. Susan, did they talk about how the funding was going for that?
They didn't say it was in danger, but it's also not increased. The issue in our community board is that we've had actually really good employment figures up till now, right, and that has totally crashed. So we have two workforce items on there. One is actually funded by Human Resources, and it's strictly for NYCHA residents. And then the other is the SBS one that's for everyone that Megan is talking about. The HRA one gets additional funds from City Council, but we don't vote on City Council budget items. But just the fact that they get additional funding from City Council lets you know that they're not getting enough from the agency.
Okay. Susan, can I ask a question, which is, sure, say we kind of, do we approve these, or kind of like, what is we kind of offer our endorsement, and then what's the path from here?
No, we actually, you need to do two things. First, you want to decide on the order 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
And then you want to vote on what you on the new order, and as well as the district needs. So the committee will send that to the full board, and that'll be combined with the priorities from the full board. So you want to first rank them as to importance, and then take a vote on the district needs and budget priorities.
Anyone, I guess, then the question goes to the floor, which is thoughts on kind of order and ranking.
I think the order, and I would leave these as is. I think number 1 in perhaps past years, but now definitely I think number 1 is number 1.
I agree. I think I'd like to make a motion to approve the ranking in the order that it's up on the screen now.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay.
Great. Make it the.
Do we want to approve
call.
this motion as well as the district needs statement at the same time?
Yes, I would do one vote for all of them. That's why we've been holding it.
Okay, hang on a sec. Let me just get.
Thank you, Megan. Can someone go on mute? I don't know exactly, but if you're having a lot of background noise.
Okay, so we're going to take a vote on the final district needs statement and the ranking on the budget priorities. Nisha Stephen is not here. Megan Joy, yes. Alistair Economakis,
Yes.
Andrea Gordillo,
Yes.
Herman Hewitt,
Yes.
Joe Kearns,
Yes.
David Louie,
Yes.
Alexandra Militano,
Yes.
Richard Ropiak,
Yes.
Rodney Washington,
Yes.
Andrew Comey.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Awesome. Cool. I think Mia's very excited. I think we can move on to the third agenda item, which I think is the report from the Arts and Cultural Affairs Subcommittee. Carolyn, I know I see you there on mute. And I believe that the plan was to discuss the Arts and Cultural Affairs Subcommittee district needs. And so, Megan, if you don't mind projecting that one again. And I might need to just step out for 90 seconds, but I will be back.
Okay, Elliot, you know, the map, the 2-for-1 map is going on right now. We are down to just about 5.5 minutes.
Okay, can everyone see that?
New face masks,
Okay.
$10 a month on the sustainer plan.
Do you need me to read this, or is everybody comfortable looking at it directly?
Is this the one that shows edits?
So who gets the mask if you only get one?
I do not see edits on.
That's
Oh,
the
yes,
last
Yes.
page.
Yep.
do you want to does everybody want to just take a few minutes to read it, and then we can have
That's it.
Caroline present, if that's all right?
Right.
Yeah, this is the edited copy that Anisha sent today.
Yeah, Anisha sent it over, if you're in front of your inbox, at 3:47 p.m. as well, if you want to look at it on your own device or computer. And if folks don't mind muting just while we're reading silently to ourselves.
Can you scroll down a little bit? Just to the third, so I can see the bottom of the third paragraph. I think.
Maybe we'll give folks about 1 more minute.
What I like is eliminate the third bullet points at the last page. And the first bullet point, which includes the same wording, maybe the first could be worded differently also.
Yeah, I'm a little confused. This has comments. It doesn't appear to have edits because there's a comment that says this is not clear.
Yeah, so all the other edits were accepted
Just
except for the.
one thing before we all, I know we're jumping in. I didn't know if we had talked about everyone having a minute to read it, and then if Carolyn wanted to just speak to it overall, or if there was any kind of more broad presentation that she just wanted to speak to, and then we could certainly field comments or questions.
I think that everyone is aware that the arts and culture community is really suffering at this point. Sources of funding have been cut. People are having difficulty paying rent. There's very little assistance at this point in time for people in the arts and culture community here in CD3. You stand to lose a large number of organizations who will no longer be eligible for funding, as well as a large number of artists who will be looking for other places to live that are less expensive. So the district needs was try to assess how the city could be of assistance in dealing with some of these issues.
Got it. Very helpful. Before we jump in, I also Susan, just to check with you, is the goal here tonight from a timing perspective is we want something that's kind of fully signed off that could go in front of the full board, or do we have an extra month, I guess, just to set the stage for this conversation?
Okay, so first of all, just to refer to Andrew's comments about the comments, there were a number of edits in this. I think Anisha accepted them all before the meeting, except for the few you see in the bullet points. And those are actually my comments in the bullet points. So the hope was that they could be answered at this committee. And yes, you must vote on a final tonight, so it could be part of the district service needs. And if I could just mention, the object of the document is not to tell the city really what to do. It's more, which I believe this does do, is to say these are our unmet needs. And which I think the document, as far as I can tell, does answer that question. And I think the comments in the bullets were just to be more specific, so it was more clear what they were saying.
Okay, I have a comment about the difference between the first and the third. The third is saying that the city should increase community participation and engagement in the community with the community board regarding all new cultural community spaces and publicly subsidized developments. Okay, the first, it says that arts and culture should be integrated into planning of city projects, but it doesn't say anything about involving the community. And that is the big difference between the 2 points. Because we do feel like we need to have input through the community board about what is being given away as a tax credit to new developments for public space, and how it's going to be used, or how would it be able to be utilized by the arts community and to help this community. To me, those are the 2 main differences. So I disagree with deleting it.
I think it wasn't clear about what the comment was. We didn't say what the comment was, just that it wasn't clear, to be more specific. That was it. And I'm not aware of the tax credits. That hasn't been mentioned at all.
Well, that is my understanding. That is what normally happens with new developments in the neighborhood, is that developers are given tax credits for having community space.
I've never heard of that.
Really?
No, but could be my ignorance, but we have no documentation or information about that.
Are you referring to like 421As and things like that, Alistair? Maybe you can explain.
Yeah, maybe.
I could explain that as well as an affordable housing developer. Yeah, Carolyn, there's no specific tax credits unless you're applying for low-income housing tax credits, historic tax credits, or 421A tax credits. I'm not aware that there's any incentive for developers to make their spaces available to the public, and it's not a condition of a tax credit deal. Tax credit deals are generally for affordable housing. There are zoning requirements that could require what's called a community use facility, which would be a space that could be filled by a doctor's office, a dentist office, or a cultural institution or something of that nature. But that's generally a zoning requirement.
Okay. So
I'm open to hearing if Alistair knows any different.
I think you said it very well, Andrew. I actually am not that familiar with 421A because we don't develop, so that's not kind of in our need.
Right.
So I think what you said is accurate as far as I know.
I mean, there has been, what's our friend's name from Theater 80?
Lorcan Otway.
Yes, he came to the Economic Development Committee many moons ago and asked us to support a resolution that would provide a property tax break to property owners who leased space to cultural institutions. And I believe we supported that resolution, and I believe it was approved and supported by the full board. So that I would argue that would be a legitimate request of the city, that if a developer or a property owner were to lease space to a cultural institution, and I would limit it to a not-for-profit cultural institution, that they would get some sort of property tax break or incentive to do so. That would open up more spaces, Carolyn, that would otherwise go to for-profit retail or bars and restaurants.
I think my only question here, and maybe again, this is something Susan can offer, but is just given that we're supposed to focus on the needs, I don't know how focused we need to be on particular solutions and recommending particular solutions.
Right. So you're absolutely right. This is not for policy or new legislation. And in fact, as you mentioned, we've already supported that legislation. Right. This is to mention, and I apologize for the fire engine. This is to talk about the needs. And I think what we have agreed on, and this is the reason why we do so much research, that there is not a tax credit issue or for arts with any developments that ever come before our board. So if that was the understanding, and I guess that's what it is because it talks about publicly subsidized, it's just not something that exists. And, you know, we've already supported in the past for theaters, but right now it's not an unmet need to do more of that because it doesn't exist.
Right, but I think this, Carolyn, please cut me off if I'm speaking on your behalf. I don't intend to, but I think what the need should be is to focus on the fact that artists in the artistic community need affordable space to work, provide performances, etc. And that is not available in many cases. And certainly we as developers are not in any way encouraged to offer that space.
So that is very specific and clear and could be an unmet need.
So Carolyn, does that,
yes,
and I don't want to speak for you, but does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. And that is partly what we also wanted, though, is when large developments are going forward, that there's some input with the community board regarding cultural community spaces and publicly subsidized developments. And that's what, I think that we're bouncing around right now.
So just to try to kind of frame it out, is there something where we want to just say to that bullet point, which is that there is a need for developers to be conscious of supporting the arts in the community? Is that kind of a way that we could frame it without being overly prescriptive? I know that even that's a little general, but
I think what we were trying to say is that we wanted a voice in what we were getting, and that we wanted it reviewed by the community board and to have input into the decisions that are being made.
Right, but Carolyn, I think the only thing, and Susan, again, correct me here, I think the only thing the community board ever has input into on developments is if there are zoning, if there are requests for zoning variances.
Okay. So how can we word it so it reflects that?
But the thing is, we don't have input because anything that's as of right does not come before the community board.
Right,
So
but Susan, I think if a developer's coming forward and asking for zoning variance on bulk and height, like they do for mandatory inclusionary or affordable units or whatever it is. Yeah, Carolyn, I don't know how this would work because, go ahead, Susan.
Well, if I was just to finish, they do. So anyone that wants a zoning variance or ULURP support does come before the community board. They come before the land use committee. And I would suggest that, and we do sometimes talk about community space and about including, including arts programs and things like that. But I would say that the arts committee would be doing that at the land use, because that's where you have the vote. And particularly if it's a ULURP, it's a very structured vote with a public hearing.
How would that be integrated into the document?
Well, you'd have to frame it as a need. So, I mean, I think if you framed it as going on the people in the arts committee need affordable space in order to create and work, well, it's also, you just want to create open.
I think it's two separate needs, Megan. I think one is just a generic need that I tried to articulate for affordable space for artists and cultural institutions or something. I'm butchering the language, so if Carolyn has better language, but basically spaces for artists and cultural institutions to operate out of, because there's a lack of space. And then I think when a project comes before land use for a zoning variance, somehow Carolyn's committee, I don't know how that would work, Susan.
Well, that's like,
I guess
we're like in that problem of creating a solution, or offering a solution when you need to show the need.
It is.
So what is the need for that? You could say that new developments coming into our neighborhood lack art spaces or community spaces. I'm not 100% sure if that's true though.
Yeah,
spaces that are accessible to arts and cultural organizations.
Okay. I think the only step back here is just the 3 bullet points that we have on this second page are mostly framed as solutions or specific things that we're recommending. And so I guess given that we're supposed to focus on the needs, I wonder if part of it is just looking through the first page and just ensuring that kind of like the language and the thoughts on affordable space is really flowing through. Because I think if you look on the first page, I think you do capture a lot of that, Carolyn. And then I think maybe where we're getting tripped up is those 3 bullet points are providing specific recommendations or solutions, which I think is veering off of what we're supposed to do.
So I think we have one clear need that we can articulate, which is the need, and perhaps Carolyn can just craft a sentence for us, but the need for affordable space for artists and cultural institutions in our community.
Yeah.
Like, let's just make sure that's not already in the first page. So,
Right.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Are we also trying to say we want to incentivize builders and developers to include?
Right. That's a separate, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you. That's a separate point.
Okay.
Sorry, Susan, I knew you also had your hand raised.
So I think, I think the point you made about on the bullet point on Charis, it's, prescribing, you're absolutely right. But I think it's really important to the community to keep something about Charis in there. So I'm wondering about maybe changing the wording to say the community needs it returned as a community center that has been promised.
Yeah. Maybe it's something like, in particular, this is an area that the community has lost that needs to, that the community feels a deep need around. Sorry.
And a loss because it
Yeah.
was something that we had and we need back.
yeah, the community deeply feels the loss of
Yeah, exactly.
the arts. Yeah.
Sorry, can I ask a question to Susan?
Yeah.
Susan, I was just going to, you beat me to the punch on that one. On the second bullet item with Charis, does that, the way it's written now, does that conflict at all with the budget priorities where we're asking for funds to go certain,
It's not a budget priority. It's a privately owned building that has nothing to do with budget.
No, we're saying City Hall should move forward in reacquiring. That reacquiring is obviously
Yes.
an outlet of funds.
So
I don't know if that
It's actually the mayor promised
I
to
think
do it.
that was, I think that was Joe's point. I mean, the mayor did say he was going to give it back, but I would, I don't know that I would make that. To be honest, he makes statements like that all the time. I think the point is, what people have been expressing, that's been a great loss to the community that should be returned.
And actually, the mayor did say that he would have the city seek to acquire the building.
He said he would look into it, but like I said, he
That's
says
true.
those kinds of things all the time. It's not going to happen.
It's not a generic promise.
It sounds like we're navigating 4 separate issues just to try to, sorry, Mia's. The first one is just kind of the need for affordable space.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that that's in the kind of first page, though could be called out a little more explicitly. The second one is the need for developers to kind of support the arts and cultural space. And that I think is probably missing from the first page. The third piece is Charis. And I think that we have pretty good language here. I just think we need to frame it as a need versus a specific ask.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the fourth is, Carolyn, that's different from the first 2 is just around something around the city, a need around the city increasing community participation and engagement with community boards around arts and culture.
Yes.
And I think those are kind of the 4 needs. And I think we basically have everything we need. There's probably just a little bit of a reframing in the language. And I appreciate Megan kind of doing the work of doing the redraft live.
Okay.
Carolyn, does that, I just want to make sure that that accurately reflects what
Yes,
you
it does.
trying to express in the doc. Okay. And then Alistair, I think you have a hand raised, but I don't know if that's just me not lowering a hand after.
That was a hand raised, which I mentioned before.
Okay. Cool.
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
I guess while Megan is editing, is there a specific point that we want to make on the need on developers? I think that's kind of a little bit of a more net new point, and so just wanted to open it to the floor. And maybe it's just kind of a reframing of the first bullet point, but I think that one is probably a little bit of language that we could tweak a little bit. So Carolyn, didn't know if you had some thoughts that you wanted to include.
I think there needs to be some way to look at new development that's coming into the neighborhood. You know, in your comment, people in the arts community need affordable space in order to create and work. And it needs to reflect that this benefits the neighborhood. You know, it's not just about benefiting these individual arts organizations and individual artists. It's about what it creates in our neighborhood, that it's also an economic engine. It helps with the quality of life. It gives people an outlet. And I don't think when you say just people in the arts community need affordable space in order to create and work, that addresses the whole situation, because it's not just about addressing the needs of these individuals and organizations, but this also contributes a great deal to our community in many different ways, both psychologically as well as economically. And I think that somehow that needs to be reflected in the statement.
Okay, I think you, oh, sorry. Let me just because I'm looking at it, I know that, and I know Megan is editing live, so I'm want to kind of move off of this page. But maybe after we feel comfortable with these bullet points, I think, Carolyn, we could maybe look at the first paragraph where you talk about economic benefits.
Right.
And maybe there's a way that we could weave in a little bit of language around developers or economic development or something like that to appropriately capture what you're trying to say. Sorry, Alistair.
No, I think it goes back to what Andrew said and mentioned that somehow, mentioning it'd be positive to incentivize developers to incorporate, local artists or art into their business. But there needs to be some type of incentive in order for them to do so. And again, I don't know how that gets structured in here.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe look at the Charas bullet point and see if we agree with that or need to tweak it at all.
Your love of this art keeps the music playing on WQX. Call and make your contribution. Not a day to leave the house. 813 or WQXR.org.
Does anyone have any changes or concerns about this? I think we.
Available to you on your radio, computer, on your phone.
About the particular section or the whole thing?
No, just that.
I was just going to limit it to this particular section.
To this meeting here.
Oh, I forgot to tell you. Have you watched Black Monday?
I'll be right with you. Let me listen to this.
Okay.
I have a comment with respect to something else when we're finished with this, though.
Well, we need to change the first bullet point because it's not a need, correct?
Yeah, I think we're just trying to close off each issue. So it sounds like I think 4 issues, it sounds like the Charas piece we feel comfortable with.
Okay.
So we can kind of knock that one off. So there's 3 remaining things that at least one was around the need for affordable space. The second was language around developers. And then the third was this third bullet point and potentially tweaking that. I don't know, Alex, if there was another piece that you wanted to put on the table or if we should just kind of.
No, I just wanted to change the phrasing of a sentence, but we can do that. Which bullet point are you now talking about? Because I think Megan said, and you said 3. So I just want to make sure we're looking at the right one, the same one.
Yep. So I think we feel good about bullet point 2.
I think 1 would become a need if you took out the first clause, right?
Yeah, I think what we could do is
arts and culture should be integrated into the planning of city projects such as designated arts and cultural spaces in newly subsidized developments. And there you can add, and developers should be incentivized to include arts and cultural spaces in their developments.
But that's a solution, not a need.
Oh. Well, you could take the solution out and just express the need.
Yeah.
Yeah, can we say they should be
They need
encouraged?
to be included.
Okay, I
Sorry,
wouldn't
one
cut
person at a time. I can't.
neighborhood. I wouldn't cut art because it's art venues
Now, imagine the map. It holds about 4,000 people.
in the first.
Yeah, that was just
Can we say it's a need if it's a need, we need developers to be incentivized to include art and culture in their developments?
Yes.
So if you want to write them out as to include arts, venues, libraries, community gardens, is that what you consider all of those things part of arts and culture? In which case you would just, yes, say that they need to be included in future developments.
Your need would be new developments entering into our neighborhood do not provide enough art venues, libraries, community gardens.
I would agree with that. Yeah, that's a better way to phrase it for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that'll address points 2 and 3. And then I think the last piece is just looking at bullet point 3 again. And then Alex, I know you had just a language on the first page that we need to jump to.
Okay, it seems like there should be a that provide. Between parks and provide.
Sorry. Real estate developments coming to CD3 neighborhood
Do not.
not provide enough art venues, libraries, community gardens, and parks.
Which often provide. You could put which after parks.
Yep.
Which provide low cost access to cultural programming and
I would end it there.
And it's ended there. And the other culture is
do not
get rid of the
provide
and.
enough art venues.
I think just cut the second sentence because it's a recommendation.
yeah. Carolyn, are you
Maybe
okay
let's-
with that? Because that's more of a recommendation than addressing a need.
I think, okay.
Okay, somebody read it so I could hear it.
Arts and culture should be integrated into the planning of city projects such as designated arts and cultural spaces in newly publicly subsidized developments.
Is it so horrible to just leave that? We state what the need is, and then we're just emphasizing, you know.
Susan, what do you think?
I get it on here.
Can you just very easily say, there is a need for real estate, just very few word changes. There's a need for new real estate developments coming to this neighborhood to provide such and such.
Or
I think she's saying
include,
for the first sentence, Megan, not the, or
Is
maybe.
that what you were, was I responding to the wrong thing?
You need to respond, that goes in front of the new real estate development in the first sentence.
I think, Susan, the question is the sentence that begins arts and culture. Is there a way to leave that in, even though it's a little prescriptive, or?
You know, I don't think it's that prescriptive. I mean, it is, but it isn't.
Yeah, I don't see any harm in leaving it in.
There is a need for new real estate development coming to CB3 neighborhood to provide spaces or provide venues for arts programming.
You want to shorten that sentence by just saying provide venues for arts programming?
Yeah, that's what
I think it's more than venues. I think aren't you looking for partnerships? A lot of the art programs we see involved with the city are public-private partnerships. So I think it would be venues as well as partnerships.
Yeah, but everything that's listed there, art venues, libraries, community gardens, and parks, do provide low-cost access to cultural programming. So yes,
that should be a separate sentence, I think.
No. The idea, I thought the idea is that the community benefits because these spaces provide low-cost access to cultural programming, right? You can go to the Tompkins Square Library and listen to a reading or do something like that for free. So I think the way it's listed is fine. You can go to a community garden like the Lungs Festival and hear beautiful music and see a performance, and it costs you nothing.
Yeah, my only issue is with library, like a new real estate development is not going to provide a library, right?
Well,
But would they provide space to rent to a library?
Oh, yeah. Well,
needed.
You know,
so are we? Oh, sorry, go Susan.
I was just going to say, I mean, we do have things that like hotels that are providing art exhibits for local artists, and that, you know, that's all part, you know, it's not just access to space, or maybe that is considered access to space. You know, I just wanted to say those are the kinds of things that do happen that I assume we want to happen more.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I think we're comfortable with the first bullet. I think the first bullet should include, I know Megan, you had that note at the bottom about people in the arts community need affordable space. I think we've now kind of captured it through rejiggering bullet point 1, as long as everyone's comfortable with that.
I don't see.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I don't see the connection between a new real estate development coming into CD3 to provide art venues, libraries, community gardens, and park. It seems like it's saying that the real estate development should provide art venues, libraries, community gardens. I think that should be broken up and worded separately.
I think if we just put, I respectfully disagree, Herman. I think if we just put space, right? Because a realist, so a developer is not going to necessarily build a community garden or an art venue. They're going to provide space for these activities to happen.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because the way the sentence is written is that.
Yeah.
I agree, guys. I think it's too wordy, and I think you can say both things in this one bullet. You could say, you could ask for space that provides low-cost access to cultural program, and also space, affordable space for artists to work out of in one bullet point.
Yeah, something like that.
Sorry, Megan, maybe when we say, when we talk about the first sentence, it should be, there's a need for new significant real estate development coming into CB3? Because if someone's developing a small building, it's going to be hard for them to.
Yeah. That's
I'm thinking large scale, where there's, you know, a public area, something like that. But if it's a small developer, what, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, Steiner's got all that unrented massive storefront space on Avenue A that would serve Carolyn quite well.
It would serve the arts community quite well. But I think it's what, is that where the school is or was?
Where Mary Help of Christians used to be, Carolyn.
Oh, that one, yes. That would be very nice.
Alex, how do we say this? To cultural programming and affordable spaces.
Wait,
for
which one are you reading? Just tell me which one you're reading.
First
first bullet point.
There's a need for new significant real estate.
Artists and arts organizations.
To provide space that provides low cost.
In which to work out of. Is that grammatically correct?
Just over 10 years ago, we transformed from being the nation's
Well, why did you just say workspaces?
to being the new
Or to work from, or to work in.
I think Carolyn works.
Answer
Mhm.
Unit member.
Yeah, that's fine.
888-813-105 or donate it now.
Okay, you could stop at organization. That's,
Yeah. Yeah, we'll stop there.
yeah.
Everybody okay with that?
Mhm.
Yep. So then I think address the third bullet point. Sorry, Megan, I know we're not grateful for all the editing you did on the first bullet point, but if maybe it's just kind of a simple way to reframe this third bullet point a little bit, which is, should we just do the similar construction as we did on the first one, which is there is a need for the city to increase community participation and engagement?
Yes, there is a need for increased community participation and engagement.
Do we want, Carolyn, can you just explain the final part of that clause, which is you say in publicly subsidized developments in the district? Is that unique from the point that we were trying to make on the first bullet point?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're good. What do you guys think?
Alex, I know you had a point on the first page, but do folks feel comfortable with these three bullets?
Yes, I am. I just want to say also that the city should make all effort to use the city public owned spaces for first consideration or top consideration to establish cultural programming spaces. I'm just saying that because that goes back to Charas and you know, and Rivington House and other places that the city divest, which is more readily available than having real estate developments, because they're most likely to do subways as a community enhancement.
Guys, I just need to step away for 2 minutes for bedtime. Sorry, not to totally interrupt your statement, Herman, but I'll be right back.
I hear what you're saying, Herman, but I feel like that falls into the same issue we were having before, which is this document is not meant to tell the city what they should do or to offer solutions. It's just to address the need. So if the need is that we don't have enough community space and public art spaces. I think that's clear in the rest of this document.
Could we then just say there's a need for the city to make more space available for, you know, arts organizations, etc.?
We could say that, yeah. Kind of saying exactly.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
The
You're
first
telling
bullet
them what to
point.
do.
That is true, especially in city-owned facilities, which there are schools that are operating at less than 50%.
888-813-1059.
Can we, no, I hear you, Herman.
No, it's just a comment. It's not to put it in there.
Okay. Alex, what did you want to look at in the first page?
It's just a tense change in the first sentence.
Okay.
I think it should say that in CD3, arts and culture are an important means of preserving and exploring our exceptionally diverse community cultures.
Problem with that, Carolyn?
No, it's fine. I think it's better.
Preserving and
Sorry, I have one question for Carolyn when you got a moment.
You need to get rid of the ofs.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, good.
Okay, yes.
So, I'm sorry, Carolyn, on the third paragraph, last sentence,
Right.
I don't understand how the creative industry capital, how the artists and cultural workers, the creative capital of New York, and are integrated and integral to creative industry capital that fueled New York's tourism. Fine. How does it fuel the export economy? I'm just not sure if I follow.
Because they have a lot of artists from New York who travel, who go, you know, they take shows over to Europe, to Asia. That in terms of, I guess, cultural capital, that as well as, you know, extensive art exhibits that go across the world.
No, I get that, and I agree. I'm just not sure if export economy is the right term. I think for me that falls into goods that are exported, rather.
I think
it's just a minor thing.
Yeah. Well, I guess it depends on how you look at it. That
I think Olympia wrote this little piece, and I think it was around like when you think of the creative industry being consumer goods also, in addition to sort of media, like all forms of creativity. I do think that export economy does sound a little misleading for I think just the creative economy might be the right language. Artists and cultural work, even though there's like 4 creatives in that sentence. Artists and cultural workers are
you go to the creative industry capital that fueled New York's tourism for years.
Yeah.
I mean, I would maybe take out the export economy and just have New York's tourism for years.
Do you say arts economy or
artists and cultural workers, I think, are integral to New York's
an arts economy, sure. I think arts,
creative economy.
Yeah, but art. Yeah.
But the only thing is that a lot of the arts that are created in New York are exported out of New York and travel around the world in many different forms. And it's whether
I would take out the export. I mean,
you could put art export economy to specify it, but I think.
Or you could say artists and cultural workers are the creative capital of New York and integral to the creative industry capital that fueled New York's tourism. No, sorry. I was going to say much of which has been exported. It sounds like we're exporting our tourists.
No, it's sort of like when you just limit it to tourism, you're saying it only happens here. Okay. And the issue is it doesn't just happen here. It's something.
Yeah, no, I get what you're trying to say. I'm just trying to figure out how to say it.
Right. It's how to say it. It's just,
I think it's something around like global or like internet. Like I think export. I agree with Alistair. It sounds more like consumer goods.
Sounds like a pair of shoes to me, or something.
Exactly.
Cultural exchange. I don't know. It probably doesn't fully capture it.
It's fuel, New York tourism,
And also,
economy.
it fueled New York's tourism and also provided arts and culture to other countries, or and also provided arts and culture to the international community.
Yeah, that's good.
Eight 813-1059. Right now. And let us send you Aria 51.
Can we get rid of this capital?
2 minutes on the phone or online. That's all.
Yeah.
Much better.
yeah. Okay.
Okay, great.
I would just get rid of the also.
Oh, yeah. And the industry provides arts and culture to the international community. Yeah, okay. Any other edits?
That's it. I mean, just this very tiny question, Carolyn. What's gig economy artists?
People who work like on a one-shot deal where a musician plays in a restaurant, where an artist does a mural in a restaurant.
I got it.
Freelancers.
Yeah, freelancers.
Okay. Thank you.
So
I
one deal.
thought so. I just wasn't 100% sure.
Having the greatest singers and orchestras.
So, sorry, and Anisha, you can also take.
No, you can keep on doing it.
But I think based on the one for the Economic Development Committee, we probably just need a motion to approve this.
I make a motion to approve the statement as edited.
Great.
Second.
That's great.
Oops, hold on. Give me 1 sec.
Thank you, Megan.
No. Yes. Okay. Okay, Anisha. Sorry, is this our last thing? No, we still have to talk special district. Okay. We need to do a roll call, right? Anisha, Stephen?
Yes.
Megan Joy, yes. Alistair Economakis?
Yes.
Andrea Gordillo?
Yes.
Herman Hewitt?
Yes.
Joe Kearns?
Yes.
David Louie? David, you still there?
He said he had to drop off early. He might have dropped off.
Alex?
Yes.
Richard Ropier? Everyone mute. Richard, you there? Is Richard still on?
Richard put a thumbs up.
Rodney Washington,
Yes.
Andrew Comey.
Yes.
All right, passes.
Great. I think the last topic.
Sorry, I was muted.
Oh, all good. Last topic was the special district. Maybe, Anisha, I will pass it to you on this one just to kind of provide context and just give the overview on the path forward.
Sure. So this was brought up at the August meeting. So full backtrack, in February, we approved resolution as a committee and as a board. And then obviously the pandemic began. So our plan in terms of outreach, in sort of disseminating the information about the proposal of the special district was supposed to happen over the summer, which obviously did not happen. And so we discussed this as a committee in August, that we would come back, you know, this month and sort of revisit where we were and what we think the path forward for this initiative is. So I'll open that up for discussion with sort of my 2 cents that we're not that much different from where we were in August. So would love to get, you know, feedback and sort of consensus about what we want to do, because I don't know if people are fully ready to talk about this again.
888-813-1059.
I'll offer my 2 cents and say that I tend to agree that I think I would put it more on an indefinite hold as like clearly an issue that we want to come back to, and we want to kind of keep momentum on the good work that's been going on. But it seems like if kind of the next step is community outreach, it's probably not quite the time to do community outreach, just in terms of what would be top of mind for the community right now. I personally wouldn't advocate for kind of putting this as the #1 item that we would want to push and do outreach to community on.
So I appreciate that it would be somewhat difficult to do outreach, but the world is doing lots of things via Zoom and technology. I think the concern I would have is that as we see more and more vacant storefronts, we want to make sure that the capital flowing out there to fill these vacant storefronts doesn't litter us with chains and corporate nightlife, because that's where the money will potentially be. And the whole goal of the special district was to head that off. So I don't know if any of our community members on the call want to chime in. I see some of our small business owners. I see Laura. I see some Black Association members, but I think that is the fear, is that we have seen some interesting things. Sullivan Street Bakery moved into a very small storefront on the 9th Street Black Association's block, and they obviously took advantage of a landlord who wanted, I don't mean took advantage, they and a landlord were able to come to terms because that space was vacant and the landlord wanted rent, and they're on a month to month. So, you know, those are good things. We saw on North Avenue A, we saw a jewelry store relocate from a residential side street to a much bigger space during the pandemic. And so somehow we want to encourage those things and discourage our landscape being filled with corporate nightlife and chain stores. So how do we do that? And how do we engage the community in that discussion? I'm not sure, but we do have some community members here. So
I just have a quick question for the group. Like what do you think will happen if you do nothing, if you continue to delay? I would like you to ask yourselves that question. I'm not really looking for the answer. I know it's kind of rhetorical a little bit, but ask yourselves that question. What do you think will happen if nothing is done?
I think I gave my response to that. I think it will. I would like to use the opportunity that is available with a lot of vacant storefronts to achieve the goal of a diverse retail environment. And I'm fearful that if we do nothing, that might not be the case.
Laura has her hand up.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I've been tracking this every day since, as a normal course of business for our organization, and in particular since the things started closing down. I live here. I've been here the whole time. It's an incredible amount of turnover. We always have a lot of turnover in September. It's typical. It's a typical frustration with trying to close the Get Local Guide, that there's a lot of turnover in September, but this is crazy. What's interesting for me is how many new businesses are opening. If you had asked me 3 months ago, I don't think I would have expected to, I wouldn't have told you that I expected to see that. So we actually have, like, to the east, things are thriving. B is full. And I do think the Open Restaurants and Streets program has something to do with that. A is busy, 9th Street's filling up. The SLA committee agenda is jam-packed with people who want to open. And I know that can just seem probably crazy to someone who's struggling to stay in business. That, you know, I can't imagine if I had a few businesses I was trying to keep going in Manhattan, it seems wild, but it's happening. And I think that to keep having the conversation, to start perhaps by doing outreach to Avima, which was the next step on your agenda. So that's not outreach really to the community, but outreach to Avima and other small business owners to hear what they have to say. I think they are concerned that if a landlord thinks they could get a blue chip tenant, a corporate nightlife tenant, their position is even more precarious than it would be otherwise, if there were no options. So I absolutely think the conversation should continue. I don't know why we'd be afraid to hear. And also just for the community board to still have the position that it's had all along, that this is a special area, we want to keep it that way. And that even just to make that known, I appreciate that this proposal is a long-term project and probably can't move forward immediately, but just the knowledge that for the businesses that they have the community board support, and that this is what we as a community would like to see here, I think is very important and very valuable. Thanks very much.
Alistair, you have your hand up.
Thanks. Sorry, it's a question for Laura. Thank you. What kind of businesses, because I haven't seen a different perspective from where I am. What kinds of businesses have been opening up that you've seen?
It's really all over the place. There's a new clothing store on 9th Street. There's you know, that's a prime area. You pretty much have to wait for someone to retire to move into 9th between 1st and 2nd, and people are coming in there.
Are those chain stores? Are they chain stores that are opening up?
No.
That's a positive thing in the sense that
it is right now that
you get it, businesses opening up, and we're obviously I don't expect hospitality is opening up.
It is. That's what's so.
I mean, if you look at the CB3 SLA committee agenda, it's full.
We have on North Avenue A, we have 2 brand new applicants, one in a completely unlicensed space, a brand new development, who actually owns 2 other establishments in the neighborhood, and he's going for a third. So I don't know if that's a factor of rents, Alistair, maybe, but there doesn't seem to be, certainly on North Avenue A, we were surprised to see 2 new applicants show up. Surprised us, and we asked one of them that question point blank, and they didn't have a good answer other than this is what they wanted to do. So
were they going into a vacant store, or were they buying
they were going into a brand new development that has never had it was a rehab of an existing building that used to have daytime retail and was never unlicensed. So we don't know the business deal behind it, but it's clearly a new restaurant trying to open up on Avenue A.
Okay.
And a bar owner trying to take an existing bar closed, the Horse Box, and the owner of the Spotted Owl is trying to take that over. And then we have a sandwich shop that's opening, trying to get a license as well.
Okay.
So there are a couple more hands up. Alex, you're next in line.
So I have to agree. I've also been watching what's going on, and businesses have been closing, but at the same time, businesses have been opening. And I'm specifically speaking about eating and drinking businesses. So that seems to have been fairly consistent. What is very different this month from most of my months is that there are many alteration applications. So there are many businesses that are also seeking to expand or upgrade their license, expand their physical footprint or upgrade their licenses, or change their method of operation and make it more expansive. So, you know, I see that a lot of businesses are failing, but I don't see that it's just, you know, a huge percentage with nothing coming in to fill it. I also have noted that although Andrew is pointing to 2 business owners who have existing businesses and want to open other businesses in the community are taking advantage of the space now to open, a lot of the business owners who are opening new businesses that I'm seeing at my committee are new people with no experience. So they're still hopeful that their businesses are going to succeed, and you know, are applying to us. So I do see that there is still the potential for the business landscape that we've been discussing for so long to remain the same in some way, and not dramatically change just because storefronts are shuttered. You know, that some storefronts are shuttered. So I think we have to discuss that. Like, do we want to do something about that now? Where as Andrew said, there are like shuttered storefronts, and there is the possibility of having some influence over what comes, or do we sit and wait and see if the trend is going to be that what mostly replaces the shuttered storefronts is the same of what we had before?
Susan is next.
Yeah, well, ditto to everything Alex reported, but I'm also seeing a trend of taking over these vacant stores. We had, besides what's on the agenda this month, we had another bar, because these eating, drinking businesses are being forced to make more money under the circumstances, you know, so they have to either change their operations, they need to take over adjoining spaces so they can seat more people. Velselka is going to take over that wonderful toy store next to it. So I see, and Whole Foods on 14th Street is going to take over the vacant clothing store next to it. I think that's that we're seeing a real trend there. I want to say Sullivan Bakery was sold out within 2 hours.
Right.
People are excited. We all know that. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep my thought. As far as outreach, I want to just remind people that we wanted to, a purpose of a lot of the outreach was to outreach to the NYCHA community, which is very difficult to do by Zoom. I think it's something like 25% don't have access to Wi-Fi. That's why the schools are having so much trouble, you know, with getting the kids tablets and everything. I think we just shouldn't forget that. And in spite of everything that's going on, which, you know, I agree with what everyone's saying, unfortunately, there's nothing we can do right now. The city's not gonna, you know, regardless of what we, you know, think, you know, vote on or have already voted on and support, the city's not gonna be acting on any of this. So I don't see how we have an influence.
So it's Judith, Harry, Megan, and then Carolyn. So Judith.
Thank you. I wanted to add that at the moment, 9th between 1st and A, which does have the Sullivan Street Bakery, has no empty storefronts. We do have a lot of coffee shops, and I think it's challenging, but they're all there and they're making an attempt. I think it's very important that we reach out to the local businesses. I'm not quite sure if I'm saying exactly what you all are working on, but we need to do whatever we can to maintain them and to remind them that they're very important, that they make our community what it is. So whatever it is you're reaching out to do, I mean, you can't really go door to door, but you could probably walk around and hand envelopes to people. A thought.
So, Carolyn, or Megan, you're next to talk, but just to sort of clarify one thing or a couple of things. I don't think anybody's saying that like this isn't going to go anywhere. I think this is just figuring out sort of what the next steps are and when we're going to do it, because it also involves work, you know, from Susan and the office and putting together you know, presentations and all of that. I think we've done sort of in the past outreach to various, you know, we did like the surveys and all of this, but this would be, you know, the resolution that we approved and voted on was sort of more concrete what the proposal is in terms of which streets would have the sort of zoning changes, right? And so it would require sort of a different level of outreach. It's a little bit more of a like technical, someone would have to, even like when Megan and I had to go around and talk about it, like we always needed someone from the office to also be part of sort of the technical explanation. So just clarifying that that is sort of what we're talking about. It's not necessarily just like flyers on a door. It's, I think, really building more like political support, I would say, for this type of initiative. And I also would agree with Susan in a lot of ways that this is a really long process. This has to be presented to DCP and all of that stuff. Even pre-pandemic, we were expecting a multi-year process. And it's just figuring out if anybody will be receptive to hearing about it currently. So Megan, you're next, and then we'll do Harry and Carolyn.
Thanks. I guess I just wanted to manage maybe the public's expectations on what this special district would be able to achieve, because it sounds like when we said, you know, should we kind of forge forward with this, a lot of people were saying, well, yes, because the SLA agenda is so busy and there's still bars opening up even in the middle of this pandemic. it wouldn't stop bars from opening up. It would stop them from expanding into adjacent storefronts. But I just kind of wanted to set that expectation. And just in general, like I would like to see the discussion continue with the special district, but I would more like to see our committee focus on the immediate needs of small businesses right now, which I think are like cleaning up the streets because the garbage is all over the place, dealing with some safety issues that have become a problem that are getting in the way of us doing business. Somebody to market the neighborhood and just make it a beautiful, attractive place that somebody wants to open a store. And then somebody to be an advocate on the business's behalf on the city level.
Harry.
Great, thanks a lot. Well, it sounds like for a lot of people thanks a lot for all the good work on the previous agenda item too. That was a lot of work and detail, and we're really glad Charis and PS64 is in there. I echo Laura and Charles and Andrew. And Andrew put, I think, pretty succinctly the concern that in this time is probably more threatening than before to small businesses in the neighborhood, because large entities have the ability to take their time to gather perhaps vacant spaces, or larger landlords have the opportunity to wait for the chain stores that might come later, if not right now. And so I think it remains imperative and an important tool to support small businesses that was supported by the community board quite some time ago. It always seemed to me very amorphous, the outreach. And I wonder if there's a model from previous board resolutions where the board passed a resolution and then kind of took some months or a year or so doing this kind of outreach that has been talked about before proceeding to the next step. Because if so, that would be a helpful model and give a very clear calendar line of steps moving forward. But it's just been very amorphous and unclear to me. And 2 points finally. The mayor is moving forward with a rezoning, or trying to, with a rezoning of Soho and NoHo. While that's outside of Community Board 3, it's right across the Bowery. And that proposal, it seems in its form right now, is going to allow for an increase in retail commercial square footage right there off Cooper Square, a block away from 2nd Avenue, creating a kind of nexus of like a Hudson Square nexus of perhaps big stores that are gonna lead to greater pressures in Community Board 3, right across the street from the area the mayor announced today about that proposal. So I think that adds greater impetus to this, the need for it, as well as points to the fact that the mayor in the tail end of his administration is moving forward with rezoning. So despite what we might think about what's possible or not or achievable, he's moving forward with rezonings as we speak. And finally, I think Laura perhaps put forward a good next step that could accommodate perhaps everyone's sense of frustration and impatience of it not moving forward, while at the same time wanting to communicate and include as many people as possible, from First Avenue, Bowery to Avenue D, and everywhere in between, to move forward with some outreach with the VEMA, the existing Small Business Independent Business Association in the neighborhood, and see if we can get some momentum on this. Thanks a lot.
Carolyn?
Yeah, I had a question on 9th Street. There's been, it's great that Sullivan Street Bakery is there. They're only open Wednesday through Sunday, I believe. They told me it was a pop-up. Okay, but I've noticed also that there's like a proliferation of bakeries, and I don't know if there's any discussion about how to reach out to landlords. It's going to be very hard for places like Westville to continue to exist there when all of a sudden there's this whole swath of competition. I mean, I hope Sullivan Street Bakery stays. The bread's great. But, it's just, there needs to be diversity in what they're providing. And I don't know, it seems like Is the landlord providing pop-up spaces to new businesses at lower rents? Is there any way of having any outreach to landlords to try to create more diverse businesses so you don't kill the businesses that have already been there?
So Judith has her hand up. Judith, you go next, and then we'll sort of need to make some decisions about next steps. You're muted. I think you're still muted.
Sorry. The Sullivan Street folks told me they're on a month-to-month lease. It's not actually a pop-up. And our block has a lot of small landlords. I don't think you can dictate who someone rents to per se. I know we try to do it with bars a lot, but I think it's all going to sort itself out because they're not selling coffee or any kind of drinks. So Westville has created a niche. Thank you.
Okay, great. So there are a lot of different opinions, but I think that it does seem like there is some desire to start the outreach again, and outreach again in this more technical outreach way. But that requires a couple of things. So Megan, I'm not sure if you remember sort of what the plan was for like when we were thinking about doing this in March.
Yeah, there was going to be, so I don't know exactly what order, but I think the first thing we were discussing was going to NYCHA meetings, like doing NYCHA first. Then there was going to be like a town hall where everybody was invited. Was there who mentioned, Laura, did you say there was supposed to be an Avima specific meeting?
Yeah, there was.
There was
I
supposed to be an Avima meeting.
I think we were going to engage, I think the next step was going to be to engage the merchants, and we were going to include Avima, and then I was going to help with some non-Avima folk that, I'm in contact with, just to try to get a chunk of merchants together, bounce this off them, hear what they have to say.
We were going to invite, that's right, like now it's coming back to me. I think we were going to invite them to our meeting, right?
Right, and which we could do on a Zoom. It could be at a regular meeting, it could be at another time.
Yeah, I think that we had a series of, Avima, I think you're right, a couple of other maybe merchant groups, and then having a sort of more formal town hall about it and presenting this, more fleshed out plan and getting feedback. So
Avima just put in the comments section that they're willing to host, ready to go, excited about the opportunity.
Totally. I think the other part of this is getting materials prepared because it is, Susan has her hand up, which is might be what she's about to say.
I was going to confirm what Megan, the three steps that Megan said, but we were Avima was having a meeting and we were going to attend the meeting and present, which is when everything came out. So it was that, and then it was NYCHA meetings, and then it was the town hall. I feel like it's a little bit of an alternate world here. If you look at all of Community Board 3 and what's going on with the schools and with many people who are out of work and food deliveries and all that, I think that it's possible not everyone's aware of all the work that's being done in the community right now that really is a priority. And I'm going to say with the elected officials also, I mean, creating food pantries. The zoning that the mayor is talking about is to focus on, because it's focused on affordable housing. So that what they're trying to do is, and I'm sorry if I'm talking a lot, putting a lot of attention on people who are now homeless and jobless and foodless. And I've got to say that's certainly where the priorities are. It's been overwhelming. I just want to say it's been really overwhelming. And, you know, I hate to be in a position of saying, we can't do this right now, but I mean, we haven't even had a day off. So I certainly can't say that the office is going to work on materials in the next few months. If, you know, members could do that, it would be another story.
Sorry, I was muted. That's the other sort of consideration in this, is that, you know, I think some of the whatever these outreach meetings will be, I think they'll probably need to involve like much greater board participation than we had assumed, because Susan and other folks on her team won't necessarily be able to prioritize this amongst all of the other things that they're doing, which I think is totally fine. So perhaps we should spend our time at our next meeting actually mapping this out and, you know, talking about different roles that people might want to play. I don't know that we're going to be able to decide, unless people feel differently about it, sort of know entirely what we're going to do tonight. I think we can certainly go back to the original plan of an AVIMA meeting, some sort of town hall, and then if we could brainstorm maybe some other folks that the committee or anybody else feels like are the right people to get in front of, and then sort of, I mean, our outreach was supposed to be months long anyway, so we're only a few months delayed. But then maybe thinking about like deliverables and who's actually going to be able to give the presentations and has all of the technical expertise to do all of that.
I'm sorry, this is Andrew. Unfortunately, I have to go. I'm still at my office, but I would support that. I think that's a good idea, Anisha.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, cool. So I will put together sort of a framework for our next meeting, and then all of the pieces that we think, you know, members would sort of have to take on, and then we can figure out what is actually possible for us to do. All right.
Music from Carmen.
Any other last comments on this?
What a great feeling that piece leaves you with. It puts a little extra bounce in your step.
Okay.
We're taking on an actual raging bull, or just fighting New York City traffic.
I think we can. I think that was the last agenda.
Susan's going to yell at me for this, but Susan's going to yell at me for this, but motion to adjourn.
Oh.
Okay, you ready for roll call?
Yeah.
Okay. Anisha Stephen?
Yes.
Megan Joy? Yes. Alistair Economakis?
Yes.
Andrea Gordillo?
Yes.
Herman Hewitt?
Yes.
Joe Kearns?
Yes.
David Louie? He had to drop off. Alexandra Militano?
Yes.
Richard Opia?
Yes.
Rodney Washington?
Yeah.
Andrew Crowell. I'm going to say Andrew is a yes.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Enjoy the rest of your night. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.